الحمد لله أرحم الراحمين وأحكم الحاكمين وخير الرازقين أحاط بكل شيء علما وأحصى كل شيء عددا ألا يعلم من خلقه وهو لطيف الخبير وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له ملك السماوات والأرض يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير اللهم صل وسلم على حبيبنا وشفيعنا وقدوتنا محمد أما بعد عباد الله أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله وما آتاكم الرسول فخذوه وما نهاكم عنه فانتهوا وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. Alhamdulillah. When we look at the Quran, and when we look at the Quran according to the ulama who have translated or who have interpreted the Quran for us for 1,000 years, or actually more, even the Prophet himself interpreted verses, Allahumma salli alayhi wa alayhi, and the Sahaba, Ibn Abbas is well known, Turjaman al-Quran, the one who can unlock the meanings behind certain verses. There were Sahaba who knew certain verses, why the circumstances around certain verses being revealed, and what those verses pertain to. And this is a whole ilm, a whole knowledge, subhanAllah. Not like some people of this era who have read the Quran and read the tafsirs, the commentaries, and I don't like those commentaries, I'm going to make my own commentary up without any knowledge. I'm bypassing 1,000 years of scholarship, of the greatest minds, the greatest hearts. You can't interpret the Quran with a poisoned heart. You can't interpret the Quran according to your own social circumstance or the environment you find yourself in. You don't filter the Quran through your ego. No, that's not how you do it. When we look at the Quran and we look at what the ulama have said, you find ajaib, wonderful, amazing things. And it's a shame that many of the classical works of the commentaries of the Quran have yet to be translated into English, sadly. So there's a whole wealth, an ocean of knowledge that are behind those words that have yet to be unlocked for the English-speaking audience. As for the Arabs, the only thing that prevents them is a lack of commitment, because the books are there. But you need the ulama to teach you though. But as for the English-speaking, there's still work that needs to be done there. My point today, and Asr is coming in about 15 or so minutes, or a bit more. Iblis, Satan, Shaitan, the devil, whatever you want to call him, he was from the jinn. He wasn't from the malaika. But because of his outward obedience to Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevated him and put him with the angels. Allah raised him amongst the malaika. And we know, again, the ulama of tafsir, of commentary of the Quran, they talk about a battle that happened. That the jinn, because they had this ability to free will, they started to fight with each other and spill each other's blood. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the angels down to deal with them. And that's why when Allah tells the angels, I'm going to create a new entity, a new creation, a human being, the angels then asked Allah, are you going to make somebody that's going to spread, kill and spill the blood? Because they already knew, they already had an experience of a creation, the jinn, beforehand, and they dealt with that situation. They questioned, they asked Allah, they want to know the wisdom. They wanted to know the wisdom. Allah said, I know that which you do not know. But the point here, I want to just kind of focus, and there's many different things here, many different facets we can look at, but I want to focus on one particular thing, that Iblis, because of his outward obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah elevated him and raised him with the malaika. It is said that Iblis, Shaitan, there's not a handspan in the world except that he prostrated. He worshipped Allah intensely. He worshipped Allah abundantly. He worshipped Allah yani, more than you and I can ever do. And he was somebody of knowledge. But yet, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then created Adam and taught him the names, and then Allah tells the angelic realm to bow down to Adam, the angels, no problem, the angels bow down. And we know that one entity, one creation refused. Because it's the angelic realm. He's with them. Why? Because he's been promoted, if you want a better way, he's been promoted to be amongst them. But he refuses. You imagine a situation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told the angels to bow down. And angels, they do that which they are ordered to do. They bow down. They don't have free will. They don't have the ability to say, no, I'm not going to do that. Whereas the jinn and us, mankind, we do that. Iblis said no. And we know the story goes on, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then punishes him for that. But I want to draw your attention, inshaAllah ta'ala, to a particular word that he used. That Allah uses this particular word in the Quran to describe his response, because his response is interesting. And he says, Allah says in the Quran, Surah Al-Hijr, قَالَ رَبِّي بِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي لَأُزَيِّنَنَّ لَهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ وَلَأَغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. The word here that I want to focus on is the word أَغْوَيْتَنِي. The translation, many different translations, but a rough translation, and then, again, who's this? This is Iblis, the devil. This is his reply to Allah, was this. He says, because, this is Iblis saying to Allah, because you, Allah, have led me astray, I'm going to lead them astray. And the word I want to focus on is the word أغويتني. You led me astray. It's your fault. It's your fault. You misguided me. He's talking to who? He's talking to Allah. And that's the word is wrong. So understand the context, brothers and sisters. Understand the context. Allah has elevated Iblis and raised him amongst the angels. An honor, a sharaf, a rank, promoted, if you want a lack of a better word. And then Allah created Adam. And Shaitan, Iblis, who was someone of knowledge, he was an alim. He wasn't stupid. He was an alim, a being of knowledge. And a abundant, intensely worshipful being then says, no, I'm not going to bow down to him. Why should I bow down to him? I'm made out of fire. And he is made out of clay. That's the first act of racism. I'm better than him because I'm this and he's that. But we're not going to get into that today. The word is that when Allah then punishes him, and he asks Allah, don't punish me straight away. Give me time. Give me respite. Allah then gives him that. And his reply is this. Because you, Ya Allah, you led me astray. It's your fault. It's your fault I'm being punished. Amazing, huh? This is an amazing, embarrassing also. But the mindset, the mentality of Iblis, it's your fault. It's your fault I'm being punished. What did Allah do? Allah told him to bow down. But he refused to point the blame at himself and he blamed Allah. It's your fault. بِمَا أَغْوَيْتَنِي. You led me astray. It's your fault. What does this have to do with us today? How many of us have that complex, have that mentality, have that kind of psychology? It's your fault. Not my fault. Blame, the blame game. You want to blame. You're going to blame everybody. It's your fault here. Not my fault. I was set up. And I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything wrong. You didn't bow down. Not my fault. To push the blame. To to not be self-critical. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm innocent. Everybody can see, and you and I can see millions of years later that he's clearly in the wrong. But he's not going to accept any blame. Why? Kibr, arrogance. La. Oh, it's your fault. He's going to blame Allah. And if you want to unpack this even further, the fact all of that worship that he did, in reality it meant nothing. Because the angels also worshipped Allah. But their worship was different. And his worship was different. His worship was defective. It was defective. It wasn't pure. It wasn't for Allah. Because if all his worship was for Allah, the same Allah that told him to bow down to Adam, he wouldn't have had a problem. But in reality, he was self-driven. His nafs. And how many of us, we are self-driven? Our egos, our nafus, drive us. I didn't do anything wrong. Akhi, your fault. Everybody can see it's your fault. La. Arrogant, stubborn, anid. No, I didn't do anything. Everybody knows it. Everybody apart from you. And deep down, yourself, you probably know you're wrong. But the arrogance, the kibr, la. You don't want to step down. How many of us, have traces of this? Imma qaleel, imma kathir. A little or a lot. We all have some of this. And this goes back to Iblis, the ego, the nafs, not willing to even comprehend that you may be wrong. That you have the ability to, no, astakbara, la. And then to blame Allah. To blame Allah that he's getting punished. Not my fault. You led me astray here. Your fault, like a petulant child, like a little baby. But how many of us though? How many of us? And I see it. I see it within myself, and I see it amongst others. We have to start to recognize that these things in the Quran that we read, they're not there just for you to and read like a. Open your heads, open your minds, for goodness sake, open your hearts. The Khawarij, the extremists, the Quran was something that just rolled off their tongues. I think people who internalize, digest the Quran. But we need the ulama, and again, English-speaking people, mahrumin, masakin, because it hasn't been done yet. But for others, there's people who can explain it. But the point is this, brothers and sisters, that this complex, this psychology, to blame everybody else, to not accept the possibility you could be wrong, you've done something wrong, la. And we all have traces of it, and we're all able to see it in other people. Ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to protect us from this disease, the disease of arrogance, the disease of the stubbornness, to even entertain the possibility that you could be wrong. But look where it took Iblis. It could push them out of heaven from the Malaika, push them out into hell. And then, because of his anger, he said, I'm going to lead Bani Adam, every one of them astray. And his anger wasn't just for Adam, which you could understand the logic there, but his anger and his hatred didn't stop at Adam, but it went to Adam's children, and generation after generation the hate, the perpetual hatred of Iblis from that time to now, still there. Hates Bani Adam. Understand, brothers and sisters, who whispered to Iblis? Did Shaitan whisper to Shaitan? No, himself, his nafs. Which is why the ulama say that the devil, Shaitan, can have a influence. But your ego, your nafs, your hawa, your desires is what gives him the power. Because he has no power. But you empower him by listening to him. You empower him when he tells you, no, you're right. Don't let anybody say anything wrong to you. When you listen to that, you empower him. You make him strong over you to the point where khalas, mutakabbir like him, mustakbar like him, anid like him. Many people have this, and it causes problems at homes. It causes problems in relationships. It causes problems between the husband and wife. It causes problems in the mosques. It causes problems in universities. It causes problems Internationally, it causes problems. Every single facet of society, it causes problems because the ego and nafs al-ammara bisu is there. We ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to protect us from this petulantness of not me, I'm to blame everybody else. Walhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين. اللهم صل وسلم على حبيبنا وشفيعنا وقدنا محمد. أما بعد أوصيكم ونفسي بتقوى الله. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات إنك قريب مجيب الدعوات. اللهم انظر أخواننا في غزة، أخواننا في فلسطين، أخواننا في سوريا، أخواننا في الشام، أخواننا في العراق، أخواننا في اليمن، أخواننا في السودان، أخواننا في الصين، أخواننا في كشمير، أخواننا في جميع أنحاء العالم. يا أرحم الراحمين، يا أرحم الراحمين، يا أرحم الراحمين، انظر للمسلمين. يا أرحم الراحمين انظر للمسلمين. اللهم افتح علينا فتوح العارفين يا الله، واحفظنا واحفظ المسلمين. عباد الله آواكم الله، حفظكم الله، نصركم الله، أيدكم الله. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. إقامة الصلاة.